Hey, tree huggers and tree lovers. This is Suzanne, and we have a special treat today. We have Annette Shumway coming on today, and I know that she's uber busy. She is a homeschool mom of 5 kids, and she's an amazing woman. And I didn't know if something may come up, and she may have to go do the mom thing, and so I didn't put her out there as an advertisement promo before, but we're definitely going to talk her up afterwards now that she's here. So today we have Annette Shumway. And so if you guys are not familiar, I'm Suzanne. I'm the founder of 100 for Trees. And 100 for Trees was formed by me because I freaking love trees. And I run 100 miles every single month to raise awareness and funds to plant more trees. Along that journey, I've met amazing people who have helped me and shared some of their stories. And everyone has had some obstacle, some challenge that they have had to overcome as they pursued their own passions, just like I have. And I could really relate to these people. And I felt compelled to find out more about them and then to share their stories and who they are. And so today we have, that's what these interviews are all about, by the way. And so today we have Annette Shumway. And without further ado, because I know that's who you want to hear from, we are going to bring Annette to the stage. There she is. Yay. I just get so excited every time I see Annette.
I loved your intro.
Yes.
Huggers. So great.
Yes. I just love saying that word. Yeah. Some people are like, yeah, ew, no. And I'm like, oh, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Go hug a tree. So yes. I love hugging trees. So we have Annette here, and y'all, Annette is actually a friend of mine. She is in Texas. And whenever I was first investigating homeschooling my kids, I used to just pepper her with questions, and she was so kind and so generous with her answers. And she was homeschooling her 2 kids, which turned into 3 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids. And she just kept balancing it the whole time. She doesn't think she does, but coming in there and actually observing her in her home several times, her kids are awesome. Her kids are the kind of kids that you want your kids to hang out with and get influenced by. That's how cool they are. And they're a trip. And so she has locked herself in a closet to talk to us today. No, just kidding. Because she's like, okay, quick, make it fast.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So we are going to jump right into it. So Annette, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Tell us a little bit about you and what you would maybe like to share about going into the homeschooling thing, and just maybe start there.
Okay. So we live in Tyler, Texas. I grew up in Michigan. So I'm not a native Texan, and I grew up with parents who are both were both in the public school system. So my dad was a teacher. My mom taught, then went back to school and became a social worker, and she worked in the public school as a social worker. I had just a wonderful, my parents were wonderful. I was raised with 5 siblings, living our best life. I just had a very ideal childhood, and I loved school. I loved my experience in public school. I had just great friends and wonderful teachers, and I just loved all the extracurriculars, all the things. It was like I have longed sometimes to go back because it was so great. It was just such a great experience. And so when I met my husband, and he also went through the public school system. He also had wonderful experiences. Neither of us had any negative things really to say about our experiences growing up in public school. But he had several siblings who were homeschooling their kids. And he's the youngest of 10. So some of them had been homeschooling for a long time. Some of their kids were already older. And he was like, yeah, I'm kind of thinking we homeschool. And I was like, I'm kind of not thinking that. I'm kind of really not thinking that. And it took a lot of it was a lot of talking to some of his siblings, seeing how wonderful their kids were, and just kind of educating myself. And then it was a very slow process. I mean, it was years. I mean, he brought it up, but before we even had kids. And then by the time our daughter was ready to start school, he had almost worn me down to where I was like, maybe we could try it.
That sounds like him.
um, but I feel like all of the fears that I kind of had before, like, but before I kind of understood homeschooling and knew what it would really look like in my life, none of those really have played a factor. Um, there are, don't get me wrong, there's lots of challenges. There's lots of things that are really difficult, but they're not the things that I kind of originally thought would be the hard things. Um, and I do have to say that I have an awesome partner in it. Because it was, I like to remind him, this was your idea. And I actually, now that we're doing it, like, I literally love it. I literally love it. I tell my kids all the time, like, I always give them the option of going to school, but I'm secretly always hoping that they will say no, because I'm like, when they say yes, we still want to homeschool. Yes, I'm so happy, because I really genuinely love it. But I feel like having a spouse that is totally invested, totally on board, and involved. He's actually very involved.
Yeah.
That I feel like I need that. Like, with this many kids
Right.
trying to do this, I feel like he jumps in and teaches a lot of the science.
Mhm.
Um, and when he has days off, he'll just kind of fill in and do things. And my kids are already to the point that, like, there are certain math things that I'm like, I don't even know
Mhm.
what that's talking about. Take it to dad. And so it's just like, you know what I mean? Having somebody who we have both have different strengths,
Mhm.
and it's kind of nice because I feel like science and math are strong for him,
Mhm.
and writing, and it's just a good pairing, I feel like. And so it's worked really well. And I feel like grateful for that, because I don't think I could do it
Mhm.
without that, because it's a lot.
It is a lot.
It's a
5
lot.
kids. That is a lot. And she's got great kids, y'all. They both have great kids. And I've been there when Shumway has come in, stepped up. I walked in one day and he was actually folding clothes. And I
Yes.
remember thinking, like,
There is a lot of,
yeah.
yeah, for sure. There is a lot of, yeah, sharing of duties, because
Yeah.
sometimes we are still homeschooling
Mhm.
late in the day and dinner has to be made. And so
Yeah.
he does a lot of filling in. Besides helping with the actual school stuff, he recognizes when, like, okay, we should probably get dinner started. She's still helping with that. I'm gonna help that. It's so great. It's a blessing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So having witnessed okay, so as I've known Annette, I was single momming it that whole time. And so and you don't realize this, Annette, I'm telling you now, you and Shumway were a wonderful example for me to be around and to see. And there was many times when I was coming to visit y'all, we do play dates, y'all, our kids would play together, and I would go over and Annette and I would just like, "Da, da, 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 da," and Shumway would be, if he was off work, he'd be bebopping around doing some things. And it was just a great environment for me to be in, as I was learning, what do I want in a partner? What kind of life do I want? And this is not like slamming being single at all, okay? But it's hard. It's not fun to be the mom and the dad. It's not. And some people don't get a choice in that. And I understand but I will say, when you can watch a healthy model and you get to just sit in that, it's really an education if you let it wash
Mm.
over you. And so there were so many times, Annette, that I just kind of watched as y'all would interact, and probably didn't even realize that's what I was doing. And now I can look at it and go, oh yeah, that was definitely what was happening. And it was a subconscious thing that happened both to me and my kids too. And so you bringing that up shows that it's not something you take for granted. It's something
Mm.
that you very much y'all value in each other, which shows a pretty solid relationship also. And so, maybe speaking to that, can you speak to that a little bit? Like, do y'all, with 5 kids and you're homeschooling and he's working, How do y'all balance the time where y'all do get to just work on yourselves? Is that how does is that a challenge? What does that look like?
This is a very good question. I was telling you, like, the one of the biggest challenges that I didn't anticipate of homeschooling is self-care. I mean,
Mm,
I realized right before I came on, oh, it's 11:30. I haven't brushed my teeth. I'm still in pajamas. Haven't eaten anything today. I need to eat something real quick just to kind of stimulate the brain and get
mhm,
dressed so I look put together for this. And I mean, so yeah, that is. And then yes, as a couple too, with his work, and then there are definitely that is another hard thing. Is I felt this way yesterday. He came home from work, and
mhm.
we've both been working hard all day,
Right.
and I'm just kind of like done.
Yeah.
And so it's
Yeah.
hard to like find the energy to invest in yourself or in your relationship for sure. um but again, I just feel really lucky with him because he recognizes I'm just kind of like, I feel like I'm like a gerbil on a wheel. Like I'm just,
Mhm,
and I don't often look ahead to what is needed.
mhm,
Whereas he has a lot of that ability
mhm.
to say, I think we need a date night. And I'm just over there still running on the wheel, looking at him like, are you crazy? We don't have time to go out. Like, I don't have time. And then we do it. And I'm like, oh, actually, we needed that. Or he'll say, I'm going to take the kids to the zoo today. And I'll be like, oh, well, I should come. And no, you just stay home. And so I feel like he does a really good job he actually, I feel like, recognizes my needs more than I do, or the needs that
Wow.
we have as a couple. And he'll kind of like plan a trip or, take the kids or do something to kind of, um, help strengthen um, our sanity,
Yeah,
our
right?
relationship. So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like there's a lot of elements to that, but he's just a really incredible person. And you were talking about how you would come here and kind of be inspired and uplifted, and that's how I feel when I look at him. Like, oh, I want to be like that someday. It's
Oh,
just a
that's a
very
sweet thing to say about your
well, he
partner.
has, yes. And I think, you tend to see, like, he has a lot, like I said before, he has a lot of strengths that are my weaknesses. And so I think you see that and you think, oh my gosh, I would love to get there. And maybe I
Mhm,
will, maybe I won't. But I think also obviously like having a very strong faith and both really being on the same page as far as just the importance of God, the importance of teaching our kids good morals and good values. And that's a huge part of why we decided to homeschool, is because he's like, I feel like that's a little bit, and it's not to downplay or to speak ill of public school, because I mean that they are doing fabulous, and it's a lot. I look at public school teachers. I have a lot of friends who are public school teachers, and I'm like, I don't know how you do it, because there is a lot of responsibility put on those shoulders.
mhm,
But I feel like, and I don't know, I felt this way a little bit in school. Like it was kind of about the test,
mhm,
learning the facts, and
mhm,
like that's, I mean, that is important. But I think that our focus is, yes, creating children who love learning and know how to learn and know how to discover truth and educate themselves, but also good people,
mhm.
people who like understand right from wrong, and people who want to contribute to society in a positive way and want to be an influence for good. And so I think that the fact that we're both very on board with those goals has really like united us in our efforts to create that environment in our home. So yeah, I think it's a lot of things that have kind of helped to make it work and strengthen us as a couple. But probably God would be number one. Like he just kind of takes our efforts and magnifies and makes it everything work out.
I think it has to be that way. That's absolutely how it works. And we Annette and I were talking about this before I came on. I worked with her husband in the ER, and so I knew her husband before I knew her. But so in the ER, I was a scribe. When you work with your physician, they usually you're working like about 8 hours, and so they treat you to a meal during that time, provided you're not just go go go. And Shumway, I noticed, would always bring something from home, which I loved because I'm big on like, I don't want to eat out. I don't want to, and he would always bring stuff from home. And I was like, so did your wife cook at home? And, and is this it? And he's like, yeah, my wife cooked this. So she put this together. And it was always funny when he would bring just like a big whole carrot and a whole bag of celery. And he's like, yeah, okay, here you go. I mean, that's not all he brought, y'all, but every once in a while it was so funny. He was like, she was busy, Yeah. So he would just bring that. But he would start talking about you and I'd ask him questions about you, but I didn't actually get to meet you until later. And one of the first, was it the first time we met when you were at your church? She was up there presenting at her church. And I even forget the subject matter, but I think you were talking about your story, or you were talking about, do you remember?
My memory is so bad.
So's mine.
I do not remember at all what I was speaking about that day, but.
Well, he invited me to come see you, and then there you were up there talking, and then afterwards I got to meet you, and I was like, oh my God, she's adorable, and she, Annette just has this very authentic love that comes off of her, and I believe your kids feel that really strongly. That's one reason they are the way that they are. And so I remember I instantly liked you, and then I think we went and did like a day where we went out on y'all's boats. And at the time you just had 2 kids and I had 2 kids. And then we got to know each other a little bit more. And I was like, I really like, Finn Shumway, but I really like your wife. Like, I want to hang out with your wife.
Yeah.
And so we got to know each other, and now it's just developed. And I don't know where I was going with that exactly. I think I had a point there. Oh God, that's where I was going. Yeah. So it's ironic that that's the first place I met you, was at your church.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're not somebody who talks openly a whole lot, at least not to me, about God, but it's very obvious that is the center of everything that you do. Can you like speak to that a little bit of like how that makes you feel and or maybe your path there?
Yeah. So we were both raised as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And it is like the fabric. I mean, it is embedded in our daily lives, and has been a huge blessing in my life because we were raised with an identity and a purpose, which I feel like is so vital. I mean, you just need that. Kids need that. They need to know who they are and why they're here. And that was instilled in me very young. Through our church. And so I always knew that I had heavenly parents who loved me, and that I was a child of God, and that he was there for me, and he knew me and loved me. And that his love was unconditional, just always there. You could always count on it. I could never do anything so bad that I couldn't turn to him and be welcomed, back into his arms. That alone, I feel like for kids to know that about themselves is huge. It just gives you so much confidence. And then also just being raised to, in our faith, we believe that we're here to learn, we're here to grow, we're here to help each other learn and grow and lift those around us, and also to just gain a relationship with our Savior. And ultimately we will live with him again. And so just kind of understanding that purpose of why I'm here, what is the purpose of this life, just gives you so much direction. And so I've always been very grateful to my parents. Both my parents they were both raised in different religions and joined the church in their early adult years. And that has just been a blessing always in my life, to have that knowledge and understanding of my Savior and his relationship to me, and the fact that he is with me every step in this journey. Like I feel like I am fumbling around, messing it up, and I can often just feel him sort of say, honestly, Suzanne, you are such an encouragement. I always loved when Suzanne would come over, because I would say to Preston, she is like a cheerleader. She just makes me feel like I can do anything. And she always makes me feel like I'm doing such a good job when I'm feeling like a hot mess. And it's just so uplifting to have people like that in your life. And Christ has always been that for me, that kind of like, you're doing great. It's
Mhm.
fine. Like, keep going. I'm here. I'm with you. But it's great to have people in your life like that too, who are just cheering you on and helping to pick you up and
Mhm.
and reminding you that you're doing better than you think you are. But yeah, that's kind of the foundation that we were both raised with, that we are continuing with our family, because it's just been such a blessing for both of us to have that base knowledge.
That is so great. And Annette, thank you for those kind words. That's so sweet. You're gonna make me all tear up here. But it was always so fun coming into your house. Her house is so lively, y'all. I walk in and there's like all these kids and like just this great energy, and there's maps on the wall and instruments. And it was like, I want to get homeschooled here.
Yeah.
I was like, and it never worked out, but I can dream. But I want to go back to something you said. This is so
Yeah.
intriguing. You and I have never spoken about this before, but this really stood out to me. You said at a very young age, you knew your identity and your purpose. And it was in an association with God, this higher, maybe can't necessarily see it, but feel it. That is so interesting because I think a lot of adults right now, what you hear a lot of is, what am I supposed to do?
Mm.
Who am I? What would you that is this is so interesting. I've just kind of had an aha moment here. What advice would you have to somebody who's an adult who's feeling
Mm.
that way right now? What kind of thoughts or feelings would you want to share with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like I said, I'm really grateful to have kind of been raised with that, because I think it is something that if you're not raised with, I think you grapple with, and can be difficult to kind of find that. Um, we have a In our church, we have a prophet who leads the church, just as there was prophets throughout history.
Mhm.
And he has recently emphasized the importance of knowing who you are, this idea of identity, and never putting anything above your identity as a child of God and a disciple of Christ. Um, but I think that it's healthy to find kind of those labels, if you will, or those identities that just give you purpose.
Mhm.
I identify as a child of God, as a follower of Christ, but also as a mother and a
Mhm.
wife. I mean, these are identities that give me purpose and joy. Um, and I see those things helping me to along on my journey, right? And it's so knowing why I'm here and understanding how those identities play a role in
Mhm.
getting me to that point that I'm trying to get to in life, um, is I think maybe the challenge. So I guess if I was going to give advice, I would say looking to those very foundational identities, because I think there's so many other things, right?
Right.
You can be a reader and a hiker and a runner, right? And everybody, there's so many parts to us, so many important things about us that make us who we are. But I think everybody has some some very foundational ones. I like obviously those two that are really emphasized, because those are universal.
Mhm.
Um, we can all be followers of Christ, and we are all his children. Um, I think there's a lot of that those two identities alone give us a lot of focus and drive. But then I think finding the other things that just inspire you in your journey and give
Mhm.
you that kind of purpose and direction. And it just takes time. I mean, I think it takes self-reflection, it takes pondering, it takes quiet, which I think we lack a lot in this time. Our culture is, we're always have our buds in and talk and listening to something. And I think you have to kind of slow down and really kind of ponder and evaluate. And once you kind of identify those things, I think it gives you direction. Kind of what you're doing each day, because you kind of know who you are and your purpose and your goals in life, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yes, that's beautifully said. And I love how you incorporated the quiet and the still. That is definitely something that I struggle with.
Mhm.
And Joey's hopping on here right now. Is that confirmation for you, Suzanne? Yeah, because I was literally throwing a fit on Friday. I'm not going to be still and quiet. Like, if an adult could throw a fit, I was doing it. Because I am so much like, oh, I know what I got to do. Let me go do it.
Mm.
And like you said, I have a lot of energy. And so to balance it, and so I'm actually sharing this if anyone else has this same issue, not issue, this same thought process. Annette, you're exactly right. It's you have to have the quiet and the still with it. It's not all talk, talk, talk. It's listen. And I was actually doing a lesson with the kids, and we were doing communication, and we were tying it into listening. And as I'm sitting there teaching them, I'm like, oh, that listen part. I really need to be hearing this right now. That is so tough for us to get quiet and still with all the noise and distractions that are out there. What kind of things is like, and you have 5 kids. What do you do to bring that stillness, that quiet into your life? Do you
Hmm.
do you have something? I mean, obviously you've like tucked yourself away right now trying to,
Yes,
to do
yes.
this.
I was gonna say I recently bought some noise reduction
There you go.
earplugs just to take it down a notch because it gets loud in this house.
Mhm.
But yeah, it really is a challenge. I really try. I'm a big believer, and obviously you are because you do it, but I really try to get outside every day
Mhm. Mhm.
and unplug. And that's hard for me. It is very tempting to turn
Mhm.
on some music or listen to a podcast, and there's great value, and there's definitely a place for that. But I really try each day, and often it's just I go rake a part of our yard,
Oh, yeah.
something, go for a walk, or just be out. I think there's so much. Um, there's something about being outside. There's something
Yes.
about nature. There's something about sunlight,
Mhm.
and I try to do something. I don't know if it's exercise. I'm not running, 10 miles, but it's active. I'm trying to be active and outdoors. There's something about that combination. And I
Mhm.
think when you add in, it's like the trifecta. It's like you're outside, you're active, and you're just thinking, and it's quiet. And there's
Yes.
something about that combination that is always very like recharges me. Um, I just it's healthy for me to kind of think through different problems or different things that I've been dealing with, and just having that time to let my brain run with kind of what's going on and working through things. But it's not often very long. It doesn't happen every day,
Yeah.
but it's the days are better when I do take the time to do that. And like I said, it doesn't have to be long. Sometimes I'll rake for 20 or 30 minutes, and then I got to run somebody to baseball practice or, help somebody with something. But it helps with that balance. Like you were saying, it helps to kind of energize. Yeah.
I love that you included nature in there. There's many times like when Annette and I were trying to set up a play date, and she would say, "Hey, I'm starting to walk," and because she was recovering from pregnancies throughout this and afterwards,
Mm.
and that last one was a doozy.
Whew, yeah.
That was yeah a tough one on you, and so she was recovering, continuing to be the mom, teach, and incorporating this new life into her life, and then the energy of the family, yet she would still find times to like, hey, I'm walking, Suzanne, hey, I started running again. And so that's something that as I've known you over the years, you have been doing that. That is something that you've always incorporated. Even if you say that you didn't do it on the daily, you were doing it. It was making a difference. So I love that I love that movement and nature, because I
Yeah.
think those are huge. I mean, obviously, running for
Yes.
trees.
Yes.
Kind of a fan.
I'm preaching to the choir. Yeah.
No, I
Yes.
love
It's so
it.
good. It's so
I
good
love
though.
it.
Yeah, it
So
is.
I want to come back to something real quick. I got a question. I got 2 questions for you as we
Mhm.
kind of wrap this up.
Yeah.
So whenever I first started investigating homeschooling, people were like, "Oh, your kids are going to be so weird. They're
Yes.
not going to have any kind of social skills and all this
Right.
other stuff."
Yes.
And so what did you, because you've been hearing it longer than I have, what kind of response or thoughts do you have whenever you get that sort of interaction?
Yeah. So it's interesting because kind of when I started, I was talking about how all my fears at the beginning were fears that were challenges I haven't really ever faced. So I was really stressed about creating a curriculum. I kept thinking,
Mhm.
how am I going to do that? I don't know what a second grader is supposed to be learning. How do I find what a second grade science, what's second grade science, what's second grade? And then I realized, oh, there's curriculums out there everywhere that you can buy, and you can kind of mix and match and try this and try that. And so that just ended up not being an issue. And then kind of the things you talked about, um, our kids are going to be weird, and they're not going to know how to interact with people, and they're going to be super socially awkward. And of course, I had many people tell me that. Lots of family members and friends and people were like, oh, and that's, I mean, I didn't need anybody to tell me that. Those were my initial thoughts when he brought up homeschooling. So I was very aware of those things, but I will just say, um, the I think that a lot of it has to do with just the atmosphere of your home.
Mhm.
So I have met some homeschool kids who were kind of socially awkward, and then you sort of meet their parents, and you're like, oh, this is just a different family dynamic. I have also met a lot of public school kids who are socially
Right.
awkward. Same situation, right? So I
Yeah.
just feel like a lot of that has to do with just the family dynamic and personalities, just different personalities. And we're a very social family, and so it just has never been an issue at all. But I will say that we have made efforts to give our kids opportunities to be around other people. So we go to church every week. They have church activities every Wednesday night. Our kids are pretty much always in a sport. We've
Mhm.
always tried to have them in soccer or baseball or basketball. Part of that is like it's just important to learn the game and how to play, the rules, those kinds of things, but also in an effort to give them opportunities to learn how to communicate with an adult who is not your
Yeah.
parent, who is your
Yeah.
coach, and with other kids, and how to make conversation. And we try to do camps and things in the summer that give them those opportunities too. But I feel like if I don't know, it hasn't been the issue I thought it was going to be. I thought, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, we're just going to have to really buckle down and work to make sure that, and it just very naturally, our kids were
Yes.
not awkward and had
Mhm.
friends and knew how to talk to people. And um, yeah, and
They're
I and
very
it's
social.
it's kind of nice because I feel like the more homeschoolers that people meet,
Mhm.
and that was something that was alleviated a little bit for me when I met my nieces and nephews who had been homeschooled, is I was like, oh, these are very normal, fun, friendly, great people. Oh, okay. I didn't realize that that could be the case. So, but I feel like the
Mhm.
more that happens, and
Mhm.
I hope that we're sending that message with people that we meet. I
Yeah.
have met people who have said, "Oh, your kids are homeschooled. They seem so normal,"
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Yes,
Thank
kids,
you.
it can happen. You're right. Yeah, it's kind of that. Yeah, thank you. Okay." Um, but yeah, I think that as more people homeschool, and as more people meet those homeschoolers, they're starting to realize, oh, okay, you can have kids who learn at home and are very, very socially aware and functioning normal.
Yeah. Well, I would agree. Having met Annette's children and my kids adoring your kids, they're awesome. I love your kids. They each are so different,
Yes.
and so but they all get along. They all kind of find their own vibe. They're really bright. I can't say enough about your kids. They're wonderful.
They love your kids. We all love your kids. We miss them. My kids
Yes.
sometimes will say, "Can we go to Florida?"
Yes, yes, you can. Get that plane fixed.
I know. So yeah, yeah, seriously. But yeah, I will say that is, like you were saying, all of my kids are so different. That is the challenge that I did not anticipate with homeschooling, is
Ah,
it is definitely not a one size fits all.
right.
And there are, I kind of figure out how one kid works and
Mhm.
how to motivate one, or what curriculum works for them or whatever, it's never the same with the next. And so that has been probably the biggest challenge, is yeah, kind of like tailoring things to each of the kids and finding what works best for them and what motivates them and how to encourage them in different ways, because it's never been the same, not for any one of them.
Which
It's
is also the beauty of homeschool,
yes,
that you can do that
yes,
and figure it out. Challenging for mama, but
yes.
but
It is also very, I feel like I know my kids in a different way than I would have. I know a lot about those things. Like I said, I know, and that I mean, all of this is possible whether you're public schooling or homeschooling. It's all, but I feel like being with them as much as I am, and working through these things as we do every day, I like know them and understand them in a way that I don't know that I would have if I sent them to school. Not that it isn't possible, but it's kind of a perk that is it just has to happen because you have to figure it out because you're
yes,
at home with them all day and you got to figure it
right,
out. So
right.
yeah.
Well, Annette, I so appreciate you coming on here and making the time. And you guys, this is not like common for Annette. She's not like, yeah, let me just hop on there and do that. She was like, okay, now what is this about? What is this
What are
for?
we doing?
Hang on. And so for her to step outside her comfort zone and do this has been so amazing. And it shows what once again, what a strong person that you are and how amazing you are, Annette. And so I am Joey's sending you hearts, and
Oh.
Aglaé has been saying nice things. They've been saying great things over here.
Oh.
Annette, I suck at putting the comments on here and doing both at the same time. And so they've said other comments. You'll have to go on the page and look at it. And
Okay.
we'll comment on all those. Thank you so much, Joey, Aglaé, anyone else who's listening
Oh.
today. But we're going to ask you one last question before we let you go.
Okay.
I ask this of everybody. So, Annette, if you were to be a tree, what kind of tree would you be and why?
So this is a really good one. I am ashamed to say I don't know that much about trees.
I don't either. I
They're
just love them.
beautiful. I have a lot of them in my yard.
You do.
Um, my first thought was, oh, a Japanese maple because I am Japanese, but I don't know. Japanese maples are very showy. We have one on our corner and it's so vibrant and beautiful and just like kind of breathtaking, and it'll stop you, and it just is kind of like a very spotlight tree. And I'm like, I don't know if that doesn't really describe me. And so I was thinking, I don't know if I could just like a specific type of tree. For example, I don't really know the difference between an oak or an aspen or a I don't like I
I
know
like
that there are lots of trees, but if I was like, well, maybe it would be more of a like a location, or I feel like I'm a tree that is deeply rooted and but kind of hidden
kind of hidden. This is
and
not surprising.
surrounded by other strong trees. I remember we had a tree guy come once because like I said, we have so many trees in our yard, and he said to us, pine trees, and I don't know, maybe this is true of other trees, but pine trees, he says, they sway a lot in the wind, and you really want to keep them in clusters. You want to keep them near other ones because when they sway, this might not be true. There might be a tree person out there listening thinking, that tree person was crazy. But it made sense to me, right? That they sort of lean on each other. And if you just
Mhm,
have one out there, it's just going to, and it's more likely to break. But if they
mhm.
have the others around them, and that's kind of how I feel like if I were a tree, I'm that tree that's kind of hidden in the back corner of the forest. Maybe nobody ever sees it because it's surrounded itself with other strong trees that kind of keep it upright. So
Well, then a pine tree. Then it
a
sounds like
pine
you would be
tree.
a pine tree.
Yes.
But I could
Yes.
see you as a Japanese maple too, because you are very stunning and get noticed, whether you are putting that out there or not. It's just your energy. It's great. You're a beautiful woman.
Oh,
So
you're so
yeah,
sweet.
we'll go with pine tree and Japanese maple.
Okay.
I like both those. That's cool. That's very cool, Annette. Well, thank you so much for coming on here. We're gonna put you in the waiting room, and we'll go say goodbye to everyone, and then we'll hop on with you. So don't go anywhere, okay?
Okay.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for hanging out. Really appreciate it. I know that this is valuable time. I hope that you guys got some value out of it. Thank you so much. If you want to check us out, go to www.100fortrees.com. If you want to donate, it's that URL plus the slash and donate. If you would like to be interviewed, or if you know someone who would like to be interviewed, feel free to send us. You can actually schedule a call with us and we can hop on and take care of that. So thank y'all so much for being here, for supporting. We love you, tree huggers, tree lovers. And if you want to find Annette, I will be posting that in the description because I forgot to ask her. So I hope you guys have an awesome day. Thank you so much for joining us today. Bye, y'all.